Welcome to the Podcast Lab, your go-to space for raw conversations, curious questions, and inspiring stories from around the world. Whether you're here to learn, laugh, or just listen in, this is where ideas take shape and voices come alive. Ready to dive into fresh perspectives and thought-provoking discussions? Let's get started. This is the Podcast Lab. Subscribe now and never miss an episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be digging into something a little different, something I know a lot of you struggle with.
Yeah, failure.
Exactly, failure. Or more specifically, how to make the most of it. You know, I think we all have those moments when things just don't go our way and it's easy to feel defeated.
Yeah, for sure.
But what if those setbacks, those failures are actually like hidden opportunities?
Ooh, I like that. Hidden opportunity.
Right. So for this deep dive, we've got this super interesting podcast script all about reframing failure, using it as fuel to achieve even greater success.
That sounds promising.
And we've got some crazy stories about people like J.K. Rowling and Thomas Edison who turned rejection and setbacks into massive success stories.
Ooh, I love those stories. Okay, so how does this whole failure as fuel thing actually work?
Well, it all starts with a shift in perspective. You know, instead of seeing failure as this big, scary stop sign, what if we saw it more like a comma?
A comma.
Yeah, just a pause, a chance to reassess and come back even stronger.
I like that, a comma, not a period.
Exactly. And that's what this script really dives into, this idea of reframing failure. It's not about avoiding it. It's about learning to use it to our advantage.
Okay, I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
So think about it like working out at the gym. You're actually tearing down muscle fibers in order to build them back stronger.
Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
Failure can be like that too. It pushes us out of our comfort zones, shows us what we're really made of, and helps us adapt and grow.
So it's like a test of our resilience.
Exactly. It's a resilience workout.
I love that. A resilience workout. All right. I'm on board with the whole failure as fuel concept, but how do we actually do that? How do we turn a setback into something positive?
Well, first, we've got to get good at extracting the valuable feedback that's hidden within every failure.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about going, I messed up. It's more about asking, okay, why did this happen and what can I do differently next time?
You got it. And here's where it gets really interesting. This script highlights this lesser-known inventor named Angie Byron.
Angie Byron?
Yeah, have you ever heard of Drupal? It's that open source platform for building websites, super popular.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Drupal. But I don't know about Angie Byron.
Well, she was a major contributor to its development.
Okay, interesting. So how does she fit into this whole failure thing?
Well, early on, she was working on this really complex feature for Drupal. And she just hit a wall. Like it wasn't working no matter what she tried.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, it's the worst. And she felt like she was failing. But here's the thing. Instead of giving up, she really dug into the problem. Like she broke it down into smaller pieces, analyzed the code, and eventually figured out a solution that not only fixed the issue, but actually made the entire platform better.
Wow. So her failure actually led to a breakthrough.
Exactly. And it's something we can all learn from. Even when it feels like a total flop, there's almost always something valuable to be learned from the experience.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess it's all about how you look at it.
Right. And for Angie, that failure actually helped her become a leader in the Drupal community. It showed everyone her incredible problem-solving skills and her tenacity.
So those setbacks can actually reveal our strengths, like things we didn't even know we were capable of.
Exactly. It's like those challenges force us to dig deep and discover hidden talents.
I never thought of it that way. Okay, this is all making sense, but what about the emotional side of things? You know, how do we deal with the feelings of disappointment or even shame when we experience a setback?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, it's easy to get stuck in that negativity and let it affect our confidence.
Absolutely. But what this script suggests is that we can actually choose how we react to those feelings.
Choose how we react.
Yeah, instead of seeing failure as this like ultimate defeat, what if we saw it as just part of the process, a necessary step on the road to success?
Okay, I see what you mean. So instead of beating ourselves up, we can choose to see it as a chance to learn and grow.
Exactly. It's about focusing on what we can control our response rather than dwelling on the things we can't change. And the script actually offers some really practical tips for doing this.
Oh, I love practical tips. Tell me more. What can we actually do to reframe those setbacks and make them work for us?
One of the key things they emphasize is this idea of turning setbacks into what they call small wins.
Small wins. Okay. I'm intrigued.
So let's say you're working on a big project and you hit a major roadblock. It's easy to feel completely overwhelmed, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But instead of getting stuck in that negativity, what if you break down the problem into smaller, more manageable pieces?
Okay, so instead of focusing on the whole mountain, you break it down into smaller hills that you can actually climb.
Exactly. And each of those hills becomes a small win. Maybe it's figuring out one piece of the code or nailing a section of a presentation or finally understanding a concept that's been tripping you up.
Got it. So each of those small victories helps build momentum and keeps you moving forward.
Precisely. It's about taking that big, overwhelming feeling of, I can't do this, and turning it into a series of, hey, I did that moments.
It's like shifting your focus from the negative to the positive.
Exactly. And those small wins do more than just make you feel good. They actually train your brain to see setbacks as opportunities for growth, not reasons to give up.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So it's about shifting our perspective, extracting valuable lessons, and breaking things down into manageable steps. I like it. But what about those times when it's not just a project or a task that flops, but a bigger dream, something that really matters to us?
Yeah. That's where the inspiring stories come in, and this script has some amazing ones.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned J.K. Rowling and Thomas Edison earlier. I'd love to hear more about how they turned major setbacks into fuel for success.
Okay, let's dive into their stories and see what we can learn.
Okay, so J.K. Rowling, right? I mean, everyone knows her as the author of Harry Potter, but her journey to get there was pretty incredible.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy.
Not at all. She was a single mom struggling financially when she started writing the first book. And get this, it was rejected by 12 different publishers.
12? Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine getting one rejection, let alone 12.
Right. It was definitely a tough time for her. But here's the thing. Those rejections actually helped her in a way.
Really? How so?
Well, No, she was forced to get really clear about what was essential to her story. Strip away anything that wasn't absolutely necessary.
So like those rejections were actually refining her vision.
Exactly. They were making it stronger and clearer.
Kind of like those obstacles were clearing the path for her true potential to emerge.
Yeah, I like that. Like if she hadn't faced all that rejection, maybe Harry Potter wouldn't have become the global phenomenon it is today.
It's amazing to think about how those setbacks actually shaped her success.
It really is. Okay, so now let's talk about Thomas Edison, the king of persistence.
Oh yeah, Edison, the guy who said, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Exactly. He totally reframed the concept of failure. Like he saw each failed attempt as a step closer to his ultimate goal.
Okay, but how did he actually use those so-called failures? Did he just keep doing the same thing over and over again?
No, not at all. He was actually incredibly methodical about it. Like he kept detailed notes on every experiment, analyzing what worked, what didn't, and why.
So it wasn't just blind persistence, it was informed persistence.
Exactly. He was constantly tweaking his approach based on the feedback he was getting from those failures.
So he was using each setback as data.
Exactly. And that's such a crucial lesson for all of us. It's not just about trying harder, it's about trying smarter.
I like that, trying smarter, not harder. Okay, so we've got J.K. Rowling using rejection to refine her vision, and Thomas Edison turning failures into data points for his inventions. Who else is in this Hall of Fame of failure?
Well, how about someone a little closer to home? Remember that podcast script you gave me for this deep dive?
Yeah, the one about turning failure into fuel.
Right. Well, the author of that script actually shares a personal story about failure that really resonated with me.
Well, really, what happened?
Well, they were working on this big project, really poured their heart and soul into it, and it just totally flopped.
Ouch, that's gotta hurt.
It did. They talked about feeling completely defeated, like they weren't cut out for this kind of work.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah. It's tough. But then they did something really interesting. They reached out to someone they admired in their field, someone who had experienced their own share of setbacks.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Vulnerability and connection.
Yeah.
Always a good combo.
Right. And you know what that person told them? They said, failure is just part of the deal. The key is to not let it define you. Learn from it, dust yourself off, and keep going.
Wow. That's powerful. It's like sometimes we just need to be reminded that we're not alone in those struggles.
Exactly. And that even the most successful people have faced their own share of setbacks.
Yeah. It's easy to forget that when you just see the highlight reel of their lives,
Totally. But anyway, hearing that advice from someone they admired gave the scriptwriter the courage to keep going. They went back, revised their project, incorporated the lessons they'd learned from that failure, and ultimately it became one of their most successful pieces of work.
See? Turning lemons into lemonade. Okay, so we've got these awesome examples of how to reframe failure and use it to our advantage. But what about those times when it's not just a project that flops, but a bigger dream, something that feels like it's slipping away?
That's where the story of Oprah Winfrey comes in.
Oprah.
Yeah, Oprah. She faced some serious career setbacks early on, including being fired from a TV anchor position.
Oprah, fired? No way.
Yeah, and the reason they said she was unfit for television.
Unfit for television? Are you kidding me? She's like the queen of television.
I know, right? It's crazy. But those early challenges didn't stop her. In fact, they fueled her determination.
So she took that rejection and used it as fuel.
Exactly.
Fair.
She channeled it into creating her own show where she could connect with audiences in a more authentic way.
And the rest is history. She built a media empire, inspiring millions along the way.
It's a reminder that sometimes those big failures, those detours, can actually lead us to our greatest successes.
Okay, I am so inspired right now. J.K. Rowling, Thomas Edison, the scriptwriter, Oprah, these stories are incredible. But I'm also feeling a bit overwhelmed. Like, how do we actually apply all of this to our own lives?
That's a great question, and it's exactly what we're going to talk about in the final part of this deep dive.
So we've heard all these amazing stories about people turning setbacks into triumphs, but how do we actually do that? Like, how do we take all this inspiration and make it work for us in our everyday lives?
Right, that's the real challenge, isn't it? It's one thing to admire these stories from afar, but it's another to actually embody that resilience when we're the ones facing the obstacles.
Exactly. Like, I'm all fired up hearing about Oprah defying the odds, but what about when I'm the one dealing with rejection or feeling like a total failure? Where do I even begin?
Well, remember that concept of small wins we talked about earlier? That's a great starting point. You know, instead of getting bogged down by the big, overwhelming feeling of failure, try breaking down the situation into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay, so let's say I'm working on this project and I'm hitting roadblock after roadblock, feeling totally discouraged. What would a small win look like in that situation?
It could be something as simple as identifying one specific area you can improve. Maybe it's doing some additional research on a particular aspect, or asking a colleague for feedback, or even just taking a break and coming back to it with fresh eyes.
So it's like, instead of focusing on the entire mess, I find just one tiny thread I can untangle, and that becomes my win for the day.
Exactly. And celebrating those small wins is crucial. It reinforces that positive can-do attitude and helps shift your mindset from "I'm failing" to "I'm making progress."
Yeah, I can see how that would make a difference. It's like those small wins are little breadcrumbs leading us out of the forest of failure and back on track. But what about the emotional side of things? How do we deal with all the disappointment and self-doubt that comes with setbacks?
That's where self-compassion comes in. You know, it's so easy to be hard on ourselves when we mess up, but it's important to remember that everyone makes mistakes. It's part of being human.
Oh, absolutely. We're usually our own worst critics, aren't we?
Right. So instead of beating yourself up, try talking to yourself the way you would talk to a good friend who was going through a tough time. Offer yourself encouragement, understanding, and support.
So it's like giving myself permission to be imperfect, to learn and grow from those stumbles.
Exactly. And here's another powerful tip from the script. Cultivate a growth mindset. This means viewing challenges as opportunities for learning and development rather than threats to your ego.
I've heard of a growth mindset, but can you break that down a bit more? What does that actually look like in practice?
Sure. It's about focusing on the process, not just the outcome. It's about embracing challenges as a chance to stretch yourself and develop new skills.
So instead of saying, I'm terrible at this, I'd say, I'm learning how to get better at this.
Exactly. And instead of getting discouraged when you hit a roadblock, you ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to grow?
Wow, this is starting to feel really empowering. Like, instead of being afraid of failure, I can actually start to see it as a tool for growth and self-discovery.
That's the whole point. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Like the scriptwriter who reached out to a mentor, don't be afraid to seek support from others. Talk to friends, family, colleagues, mentors, anyone who can offer encouragement, guidance, or even just a listening ear.
That's such a great reminder. We don't have to go it alone, and there's so much power in sharing our struggles and learning from each other's experiences.
Absolutely. And as you continue on your journey, keep these stories in mind. Remember J.K. Rowling's persistence, Thomas Edison's methodical approach, the scriptwriter's vulnerability, and Oprah's unwavering belief in her vision.
Those stories are like beacons of hope, reminding us that even in the face of setbacks, we have the power to turn things around.
Exactly. And as you navigate your own path, remember to celebrate those small wins, practice self-compassion, and cultivate a growth mindset. You've got this.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on failure, and honestly, I'm feeling pretty unstoppable right now.
That's fantastic. And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep turning those setbacks into stepping stones on your path to success.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into turning failure into fuel for success. And until next time, remember, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a vital part of the journey.